Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 247. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally renowned and highly talented toy designer, world builder, and comic creator, Chance Priest.
Glad to be here.
Chance, how you doing? You're talking to us straight from the amazing Lone Star State in the town of Sherman, Texas, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually in Bells, 12 miles east of Sherman. So I'm in a town that's so small, it probably don't even register on most maps.
Many months ago, where I discovered your YouTube channel when you're talking about all the toy designs that you've been doing. And then I did a deep dive on your website and discovered as well that you now, over the past few years, have been taking all of the characters that you've created, all the worlds that you've built, the world building you've done for all these toys that you've made, that you now turned it into also a comic book series. And you're on issue 4, correct? Yeah, I'm putting on my art degree on this. I would see this as the art style on this would be considered, I would see mostly as what we would call like outsider art, where it's just beautiful. And also like every single page itself is amazingly designed. Like every single page is almost a piece of art and illustration on its own.
It is.
And so a lot of this was first created by, you initially started these off as toys, correct?
No. Do you want me to go from the very start, or do you want to?
Yeah. So no, Chance, take us from the beginning. How did you create Warriors of the Universe?
Okay. Well, let's go to high school. I graduated 91. And, my sophomore, probably like freshman through senior year, I had a best friend, and we worked on a comic book together. I had something just pop up in my deal that I can't see. Anyway, okay, it's cool. So we worked on a comic book together, and it was because that was the age of the Ninja Turtles. That was before they were anything, in the late 80s. When they were all Eastman and Lairds, and we thought that was great. So we worked on, and that was my dream. When I used to get asked, like, what do you want to do? I'd be like, I want to make movies and draw comic books. That's all I want to do. But I never considered myself, like, I was always that guy that was drawing on books and in classroom and everywhere. Even when I was a little kid, I always drew and stuff. But I was really more like into making up stories and really more than anything, making up characters. And and so we worked on it quite a bit in high school, but as like most people, there wasn't enough time. There wasn't anything, like there wasn't an internet to go to say, how do I do this? Who do I sell it to? What do I do? And so that never worked out. Fast forward through an extremely adventurous life that I've had, and go up to 2008. I used to do a lot of drawing at night, and mainly I was a custom knife maker as well, and so I did a lot of drawing. Like I would come up with blade designs, and so I always had a pad and a pencil beside my bed, and I had this crazy dream in 2008 of a comic book character, or really, like in my mind, it was a movie character. And I said, man, I want to do this character. I mean, I woke up at like 3 a.m. drawing, writing, like it was, like it was channeled, through my brain, And so I wrote all this stuff down, went back to sleep. The next day I got up and I was obsessed with it. Couldn't work, couldn't do nothing. So, and we had like 5 businesses at the time. So I was a very industrious, successful, normal person. I guess you'd say normal, but anyway, I was into making money, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
So man, I just kept working. And then my kids, I have 4 kids, and they were small, and they got all involved, and they said, let me work on a character, Dad. And they're bright. They're real talented artists. And so they started working on characters, and then we would work together. We built all this stuff for years. I built a universe, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And we kept adding hundreds. We didn't add like 10 characters a year. I mean, we would add hundreds of characters a year, and we have this incredible collection of binders full of characters and stories. And I'm real bad about snippet stories. I do like, in my mind, everything comes to me and as a scene, like from a TV show or a movie, just a scene, not the whole movie. So I have to put all those scenes together, and you know, that's what I worked on for the longest time. And all I kept thinking about is I got to find a comic artist. I got to find a sculptor, because I wanted to make toys, but really only to say, like, this is my character in the flesh, you know, just to show people like that. But you know, buy my comic, and all I was going to do is write it. And at one point we had an office set up. We advertised for artists. We had people come in, typical with, and I don't mean this as a downgrade to any professional comic book artist, but we had amateur comic book artists that came in and they said, man, I can do this. And they would take your story and you'd never hear back from them, or, you know, they have one page done in 6 months, that kind of deal. And it really came down to the point where I said, I need to do this myself. So I started really hammering away at the drawing, the painting, and sculpting, which I've never been trained in art. So I've never went to college or anything. I didn't have any kind of I mean, I had zero art. So I was, I never sculpted. I didn't even know what do you use? Do you go outside and grab clay? I don't know, but I started sculpting and everything. And it all came real natural to me. Like I say, I'm no Todd McFarlane, but I'm the best Chance Priest there is out there.
That's right.
You get what you get, So I just, that's what I did, man. I just started doing it. And even when we started the comic book, I knew I didn't have time because the toys had already became a success and we had a really good following. And I said, man, I just don't have any time. And what I would do is, like, when we do our card backs, when we do our releases for our figures, we'll have like 5 figures, and I'll have one card back artist do all five pieces, and then I'll do a card back with like all the characters on it, and then I also get guest artists to do 5 different art card backs, which are like chase card backs. So it makes it like it's a game. It's for sure, collecting everything that we make is a game, trying to round it all up. But I always loved the art, and that's where I met Jeff, is having him do some card backs. And because I saw him do card backs for Luke Walker, Toy Walker, another toy maker, and I said, man, this guy's great. I got to get him. And then it didn't take any time. We talked it out, and he said, what is it? Tell me more about this. Is there a story? Yeah. So I gave him the story, and he like shot into a comic book right away. And he just takes the story. I set up the scenes. It's kind of like a teleplay. I used to read those teleplays, and so they were like the movies, in writing form with the script and everything. And so that's what I would write him, and then he just turned it into that. And then from there, we just keep on rolling with more stuff.
So there are a couple words that I wanted to, for our listeners out there and some of our viewers that might be unfamiliar with the toy design industry. Card back, is that the word for like that, the actual?
Yeah, the backing. Yeah, and then you put you put the bubble on the backing, which I know there's technical terms to everything, but I don't use them because I just talk like I talk. So.
And now also there's another word that I heard from one of your interviews, a zappy. What's a zappy?
Oh, well, that's the first figures I ever made were zappies. And I had been sculpting the heads to all my characters. And I said, one day I'm going to invent a body, I'm going to sculpt bodies, but bodies take a long time, and figures take even longer because you have to, figure out the joints and all that stuff like that.
Right.
One night, again, middle of the night, I took a piece of wood, I carved it, sanded it, and I put one of the heads on it, and I painted it all up, and it had movable arms, but that was it. And when my kids came home from school the next day, they said, "Oh my God, that thing you made is so freaking cool. It looks, it looks like a piece of art from, this, that, and the other." They were going, nuts over it. So I was like, yeah, you know what? It's not half bad. Well, but within a year, I had like 13 or 15 different body styles, and I can't even count how many different arms. And then we had,
Wow.
I think we have over 225 different heads that I've built, that I've sculpted for the Zappies.
Okay. And so I'm really curious as well, because so that's how it kind of started, though, was
Mhm.
making the toys were the Zappies.
Yeah, they
And
were the first, like any kind of pattern on anything, because I did make some other time. I've made some toys that look like toy soldiers that were about
mm,
4 inches tall. That I wanted to go with like a Target set, like you know the back of the comic books where they had the, you bought the little flat soldiers, and
right.
and kids would use rubber bands and knock them down. Well, I mean, I used to do that, so I built the little Target sets, and then but they were really difficult, and I said this is not going to be the way to really show off all the stuff that I make, all the different characters. So
The world that you've built called Foman, is that what is?
oh, that's just one planet. The Ortis is the big planet. Fallman is the and yeah, it's like fake man, like,
Right.
because when I originally started, this was the Wotu, the Warriors of the Universe, was originally like a line that was really meant to knock off Masters of the Universe,
Right.
but do it in a more adult, I mean, wild and crazy with characters, but more of an adult, because I like the comic violence. I like the cartoon violence. So
Right.
and Master Universe didn't have that. So, I wanted to do my version of it. And I also like the size, the 5.5 size of Master Universe figures. I wanted to use them. So I created Fallman, and then the story behind that. But after it blew up and I had
Mm,
all the success with it, I said, dude, you know what? I got to somehow figure out how to integrate that with Ortis and the main bulk of the story. And I was like, Fallman was just a side story on a moon, one of the many moons that orbited around Ortis. And so now I've done that. I've merged them together, and they're, that's just a moon, and that they're happening there. But some of the best characters get to come off and go to Ortis and then have adventures on there and everything.
So when you created this, how deep down the rabbit hole do you go in your world building? Do you create like governmental systems and like religions and languages and all
Yeah,
that stuff as well?
I'm into the whole 9 yards, because like in my mind, I can't rest until that is known, like
Right.
how that all works. Like I hate, I'm sure you do too, when you read a comic, you watch a movie, and they say, yeah, well, that's that way, and which they don't give you anything more, and you're like, well, wait a minute, that makes no sense.
Right.
Like how could well, it's like you're watching a movie and some little kid jumps up and kicks a grown bodybuilder and knocks him down. It's like, well, that kid's got to have superpowers. He can't do that. So you got to tell me. So that's my deal, is like I have to have all that fleshed out, or my brain's not
Right.
right.
No, well, also because of that, how do you create like also within your world like a magic systems or any of that stuff? How does that work?
It's more of a god system,
Okay.
on the deal. So there's a omni god that's everywhere, that's not seen or heard from, right? And then there's these sub gods called pluvejas, which roughly translates in Latin, kind of weird. I use a lot of Latin through everything, but translates to rainbow riders. And these
Mm,
guys enter Ostidi, which are wormholes, and they go in and out, go travel to different places, but really they have like a territory on the planets, and the moons. Different, every one has a sub god. Okay,
okay.
so these sub gods, they manage it the way they want to, and
Okay.
they actually have wars from time to time, but usually it's better just to keep things, So some sub gods, some of these pluvejas, they want their world to be as technical and as crazy, uh, full of technology and progressive as you could possibly get. So you have these incredible cities and lights and power. Well, guess what? Just on the border of that is a different region, and that Pluveja might like the Stone Age a lot better. So he doesn't really allow anything to happen. Now, they can't watch everything. So things slip in there, but if he sees it, they'll eradicate it. So anyway, it's what brings the balance. It's like what gives a sand person the power to fight stormtroopers. like well, we really know they don't. I mean, the stormtroopers could have all their technology and they could come through there and absolutely wipe them out with chemical weapons and every kind of weapon because they have that technology. So in my mind, that bothers me. So it's like, what's to stop that? So in my world, you have a god basically,
Right.
and some of them were like techno gods. They actually have this power from it could be from cosmic quartz, which runs all throughout the planets, and that's what is the gold, that everybody's looking for, is the cosmic quartz, and it comes in different colors. It gives different powers, but it can just be like they were born gifted. They were born with this like godlike power, and they know that they're not the omni god. They know that
Right.
they have to stay in line, and they can't get too big for the britches, or the omni god will smash them out. And the omni god remains mysterious, in the book. It's the big god, so
Right.
I like that, and I like certain things. I'll actually start writing a story for it. I'll go, no, scrap that. No, not even I know the real background on this guy, and I don't want to pigeonhole myself in with him with a background. I want him certain characters. I was like, I want the mystery. I don't even want to know. I want to wait to see how this progresses,
Right.
myself, in my crazy brain.
I mean, because you mentioned earlier too that you've created like there's like scores and scores of characters that you
Yeah.
created and designed, and now you're putting them in a story within your comic book.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any characters you have that are completely sacrosanct, meaning like not these characters, this character will not die, this character is going to be going through, or are you like, you know what, whatever happens, happens?
Well, this is not a business to me, and
Right.
I try to tell people, because we have, I have a pretty big group and following and whatever,
Right.
they're like all guys, and gals, they joke, and sometimes I have to like hold my, like, like those characters are like my children, and I can't handle that. I
Right.
just, there's certain things you can't say. I'll just delete your comment because
Right.
I'm like, I can't. Or they'll draw like sometimes, especially used to, they would draw like funny pictures of them or something. I was like, no, I gotta delete that because I can't. That thing that is, you're talking about my kids there. So yeah, I do have those characters that that I'd like to say could never die, but I am also a man of the real world, and everybody dies, everything dies. So yeah, yeah, no, anybody could die at any
Right.
given time, and I wouldn't be against it if the story, if whatever's going through my mind at the time, if I said that's compelling, it needs to happen, yeah.
Right.
So
Because I brings about, not to give any way of spoilers, but about that one character that did turn into a stone in the end of issue
yeah,
4. So that's
yeah,
why it's
Schumann,
like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. And there is going to be in issue 5, if it makes it into issue 5. So what I do is I just write the story, and I don't even pay attention to where I'm at or how many pages. And to me, in my mind, that's like an episode of a television episode. I
right.
send it to Jeff, and he never asks me another word, and he just goes, "Yeah, there's 18 or 20 pages of the comic book," and it just
Right.
happens that way every time. And I mean, it's like working with the greatest person you could ever work with, because you just send him the story, and next thing you know, there it is. Now,
Right.
granted, the characters are a little different from the way I draw them, or he'll add some stuff. Of course, his backgrounds, you've seen them; they're insane. With all
Yeah.
there's no space left untouched. And I'll be like, I don't know what that thing is he drew over there, but whatever. If I have to explain it, I'll come up with a story. But yeah, so if all goes right, that stone will come to bear, a real fun issue of issue 5.
So I'm wondering too, because you have toys now, you have your comics and stuff. Have you thought about doing something also, expanding out the IP, your intellectual property on this, by making like a tabletop role playing game out of this, since you've created this giant world?
Actually, I talked, and I'm absolute worst with names. I talked with a guy, and we were going to work on that. and we actually talked a lot for a few days, and then it fell apart because I have a pet peeve, and I like old school. I like everything hand drawn, no computers.
Right.
Yeah. So the only thing you can do is put your hand drawn logo on top of your hand drawn deal by using a computer. Other than that, it has to all be, as far as I'm concerned, we're in 1880s comic book world, you know.
Right.
uh, even some of the companies we use, they use old presses, and they've showed me pictures. They're like, that's an 80-year-old press your comic book is pressed on. I'm like, oh my god, I love that, you know. So that is it's pretty neat, you know, that but I'm like that kind of, he's like, man, I don't have the time to do all that by hand, you know. I want to use a computer and computer generated this, that. That's like, man, I'd rather not do it, you know.
Right.
I've had a failing of I worked with a producer doing a Netflix show for the stuff for like 6 months. We went back and forth and really hard, but there were certain provisos they wanted me to bend with, and I wouldn't. And because I mean, if I was 25, that would be the worst time ever for me to have this, because I'd be like, oh hell yeah, sure, man, yeah. If it means money and we can get big and famous, that's what all I want, you know. And I'm not interested in that at all. I'm not interested in the money, fame, any of that stuff. I do want to get the stuff, to get the comics and the characters out there and be known. I mean, there's a couple of guys with my Kutu character. You know, they have tattoos of them, you know, to a couple of the fans, and I love that. I was like, man, that just means the world to me, because you know, like you loved my character so much, you had it tattooed on your body, you know, and they're big tattoos too. So I was like, you know, that's cool. But that's
yeah, was Gakutu. I've read that. Like, is he like the main villain? Because I thought you had a villain previously. You mentioned, like, in your earlier iterations, you had another that was a major villain.
There is a lot of villains. There is a lot of gray matter in here, like Morgia, who is there's him in issue 1 right there, Morgia in the center. And when I very first made it, he was going to be like the omni bad guy for the guys on Fallman, you know. And then I started realizing, man, you know what, I like you. I mean, I don't want to sound crazy, but I really do talk with these characters, you know. Like I'm like I go back and forth with them. I don't just draw them and spit out story. I go like, you know, like, man, I mean, what are you all about? You know, you're like, oh man, you know, you love you know what, you love your home, you love your home planet, you love the wildlife, you love the nature, you love the things that are there, and maybe you did kill a whole bunch of people, but you did it because you thought you were doing good, you know. And so sometimes the stuff he does looks really, I mean, my God, he turns a whole bunch of like peaceful tree hugging people into ash one time, and you know, they go, you know, he said, well, you know, I did them a big favor, and he was real proud of himself. You know, he said, you know, like they couldn't protect themselves about, you know, for what was coming. So I really helped him out. He was real proud of himself. And so I said, you know, I love this character more and more. The more I write him, the more I write his family, because I've got a comic book I'm hopefully will be done by this year called Morgia, the Morgia family. And it has his whole family and the Morglins, the little creatures that run around with him, which they really are a type of offspring from him. But you know, and so he's not like there he is on issue 4, right at the front, right at the top. And see, he looks like super evil, but he's the more you read him, and the more of course, the comic books are short and they don't have a whole lot of juice yet. But they will, you know, and the more I write him, the more I'm like, man, he's going to be like everybody's favorite, because but Kutu is something that when I made him, he was a chase figure for wave 2. So out of 600 figures, there were 6 Kutus that were available. Okay. So it had everybody chasing him down, and I know that several have sold in the $2,000, $2,500 range on the secondhand market. Of course, I only got $50, you know. you know, and he really, everybody, because I mean, they go like, oh wow, this guy looks like a vampire, a cyclops, and a mummy and an alien all rolled into one. Probably none of the above, right? So he's a real in-depth character, and if you really wanted to get to like pure evil, he's way more of the pure evil type. But
Right.
there again, he does do some good things that makes you sway over and go like, dude, is he a good guy? You know, and then you'll be like, no, he can't be. God, he's a conqueror. You know, I mean, he wants to.
Right.
I mean, he'll kill everything in sight. You know, so
Right.
everybody's got. It's my life as I've realized that every human being is such a complex character, and they all have good, they all have bad. You know, some the scales tip, of course,
Right.
but you just, instead of being a hater, learn to accept everybody if you can. If they don't go too far to the bad, you know. But yeah, that's the way I look at it.
So let me ask you this question. So for those that like comic creators that might be listening or watching the podcast to say, Chance, this is amazing. Like you got this great toy line that you've been able to make, and you have this comic book. Should I look at making toys for my comic characters?
Well, I would say this. If you have a comic book, you got to have a toy. I mean, if you got I mean, who the hell are you if you don't have a toy? I mean, what are you, a joke? No, just kidding. You know,
right. Now, and what would you say for those that are kind of like doing toy design on their own? Should they make like a comic book?
Yeah. To me, the stuff that I collect that I love, I want a story behind it. You know, like it's one thing to have a figure and go like, oh man, that's a cool figure. You know, that dude, that, you know, that just looks cool. Well, all you have is a toy.
Right.
Okay. But when you have the you know, something solid, something concrete, a story, a name behind it, then man, to me, you got an entity. You brought it to life. So
Right.
to me, you know, one without the other, you know. And I don't know a lot of comic guys that I mean, I do know some comic guys that don't care anything about a toy, but most comic guys, their favorite characters, by God, they want a toy. You know, they want a figure or a statue, either one. Which my figures are a little, you know, they're a bit of both. They're a little bit statue, a little bit action figure. They're adult, you know, they're for the adult collector.
Well, like you said too, is like these are actual pieces of art as well.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yep.
They're intense, you know, to make one, to get one, you know, to work out all the difficulties of getting it made, to make a mold, pour it, you know, paint it, and everyone's individual. Even if you have the same color paint and you're trying to make them look exactly the same, it doesn't matter. Everyone's going to come out individual.
So you're very specific on the fact that the toys you make are very limited run and you don't make them again, correct?
Yeah, to me, that's the key. Of course, you also have to have a big repertoire of toys, and you have to be a prolific sculptor. I sculpt something new every week. Sometimes I'm working on 3 sculptures at the same time this week. So you have to be prolific. You know, like you have to have you almost have to have the either the money behind you, which I didn't have to start with. But you have to, I actually sold my house to do this. I sold my house and spent the money instead of buying another house. I sold my house, spent the money to give me the time and energy and everything that it took to build these toys and to make them where they're good. You know, where you have something that where you don't see holes in them or casting flaws, and you know, my God, I'd never done it before. You know, the last time I painted anything, a toy was when I was a little kid. I used to play toy soldiers that were that big, you know, like when I was 10 and 11, you know, so it's been that long. And so, I mean, I was like really starting from scratch, but I was real determined to do it. But, you know, I when I tell people, I said, you don't know what I've been through to get here. I didn't watch a YouTube video and invest, you know, $200. And, you know, it took me a lot to get to be able to make what I make, the quality that I make them, and in the amount, we've made thousands of figures. We make several, make 1,500 figures a year, sometimes more.
No, so because you're creating this large world, have you, at what point do you say, listen, I already have like 500 characters, let me just concentrate on developing them, or are you just making more and more characters?
I'm the shower this morning. There you go. That monster right there. And I've been up here drawing it. He's already getting incorporated. I always say, why waste your time sketching something out when you've already you saw it in your mind and you're like, oh my God, that'd be a perfect scene. Like the guy's already on a trek in your comic book, right? But it'd be a perfect scene to interject this beast that comes out of nowhere and creates a menacing problem. And yeah, of course he's going to kill it and keep on rolling. But that gives me some fodder for the comic book. I don't waste a second sketching it. I go straight to page. That pencil, I'll start inking that thing when we're off the air. And then tomorrow I will start sculpting that thing. And this weekend, by Sunday, you'll see the prototypes up for auction. So that's the way I work. I'm fast.
Do you, when you make characters, do you feel like you have to have some sort of sense of equity to make sure you're even out between like villains and heroes, or
no,
it just whatever pops up?
No, there's always more villains because it's and when I say villains, I mean, let me put it this way: dangerous characters. It's just like I said, there's so many gray people that I've met, and then I've found that I'm like really friends with, and you're like, I really get along with that person, and you find out, man, to other people though, that's a really bad dude. And you're like, wow, I never would have thought that, because they were so, that they've been like so good to me, but you're like, oh my God, they've done a lot of people bad. And you're like, oh, wow. And the vice versa, I've had people do me wrong, and I've been like, what's wrong with that guy? He's just always that way to me, or he did this to me. And they're like, I don't know. I love the guy. He's, my God, when I was sick in the hospital, he sent my wife money. You're like, who knows? I mean, what goes through humans' head? I don't know. Most fascinating creatures on the planet.
So your stuff. If people want to learn more about your stuff, Chance, where's the best website they could go to?
To be honest, just to look at the amount of stuff that I've done, where you can get an overview, is wotu.toys. And when I say Wotu all the time, Warriors of the Universe, but everybody calls it Wotu. I actually didn't start that. Everybody else started calling it Wotu. You can also go to the Instagram, Victory Comics LLC Instagram. I've always I post basically most everything I do on there. So
wow,
that's
amazing. So wotu.toys, and you can check that out. And then on there, on wotu.toys, you have on the left hand side of the screen, you have a link to all of your collections and your series that you have as well as on there.
Yeah, and I didn't even know he was going to do that, because I was keeping everything kind of separate, like from my collecting, because I'm a voracious collector, man. I just collect the heck out of stuff, and but it's fine with me, I mean, it maybe kind of gives somebody an insight to why I'm so addicted to doing it. I mean, my whole life, I always say, the family is one thing. That's first and foremost, right? Well, outside of the family, the toys, the comics, the movies, that's been my whole life, I just love it. It's what I think about all the time,
Right.
And even when I wasn't making stuff, I was collecting stuff nonstop.
Right. Well, perfect, Chance. Well, listen, come back on in a few months once you have some, more toys and some more stories coming out. I'd love to chat more about this.
Just holler anytime.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, Chance, let me just do the intro and we'll jump right into it. This was just this is the pre-show banter. See, yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
the bantering.
The banter. All right, here we go. I'm just gonna do the intro.